What's going on, everyone? My name is Machine Gun Hunt and welcome to another Destiny 2 video. Today we're actually going to go back a little bit within the channel history. I made a very old video telling you how to do well in Scorched, the PvP playlist activity where you can go ahead and use a Scorch cannon to kill guardians. Problem was, it was a bad video. Not only that, I didn't give proper information while explaining how it works. Not only that, there's also a couple of updates that went through with Scorch. So today, I'm going to go ahead and update that video, give you detailed information on how to do well with it, and most importantly, show you the beauty of Scorch. Me personally, I think Scorch is some of the most purest ways that you could experience PvP. And not only that, sometimes it's good to let it loose for a while. Just not focus on perks, not meta, like no competitive stuff. Just focus on having straight up fun, going against other guardians, and absolutely destroying them in PvP. So yeah, without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So before you want to go ahead and get ready for Scorch, what you need to do is understand a couple of things about it, okay? No abilities are not available in Scorched. So any class abilities that are available in the game, it's just not there. No grenades, no melee, not even any movement abilities like Icarus Dash or freaking dodge abilities, okay? None of that stuff is in the game. The only thing that you have is your jump ability for your class. So for Titans, it's going to be Titan Strafe. For Hunters, it's going to be your jump. And then for your Warlocks, it's going to be your glide. So, really, the biggest thing that you need to do is figure out what class that you want to use the most. Find out what's most comfortable for you, and just go ahead and get used to movement for that class playing Scorch. Me personally, I do like using Warlock and Titan the most, simply because you're in the air the most. And sometimes it can be a great advantage, especially if you catch your opponents by surprise. So that was the most important thing. Choose your class. If you guys like sporadic movement, Hunter is probably the way to go. If you guys like staying in the air for a while or going to one place to another while in the air, Titan or Warlock is going to be your best option. Okay, so number 2, armor, mods, and exotics to use. Now, mods are actually a little bit useful here. It's just not as much as other perks, like, you know, freaking dexterity mods, freaking ammo mods, freaking scavenger mods. You don't need to worry about any of this stuff in Scorch. Instead, what you need to focus on is 3 stats. It's going to be recovery, resilience, and sometimes mobility, especially for a hunter. So, what you need to do is have armor that gives you high recovery, high resilience at least. And if you can, get as much mobility as possible. For Hunters, I'll probably recommend more mobility compared to Titans or in Warlocks, simply because mobility actually helps you out a lot with jump speeds, movements, all that stuff. Really with Scorch, it really doesn't matter what's the highest. I'll probably have mobility being either second or third in your category, but resistance and recovery is going to help you out the most here. Simply being because Scorch cannons not only can hit you directly, but it also has an area of effect damage. So since it has that type of damage, what you need to do is have a solar chest piece equipped. Make sure you have the mod solar resistance and conductive dampener, which makes it so that you gain damage resistance towards an area of effect attacks. So since Scorch cannons actually have area of effect attacks, then you can go ahead and equip that, and then it could protect you. Now, there might be a small possibility that it doesn't work. All I know is that some perks like sniper resistance actually work with PvP, so I'm going to assume that these resistance perks do work with PvP. And even if it doesn't work, psychologically, it'll probably help you out as well. And sometimes psychologically, just having something on could just help you out, like for your performance. And it's actually a studied thing, so it's pretty interesting. Alright, you want to make sure you have mods that increase your recovery, resilience, and your mobility. So, you know, you have like 5 slots available, so make sure you go ahead and have a whole bunch of recovery and resilience mods, as well as some mobility mods as well. And then the mod Powerful Friends also come in handy. It gives you plus 20 mobility, and the more mobility you can get, the better. So those are like all the mods, the armor, and whatever you could use that's available. It will be pretty handy. What you also want to do is that there are some exotics that are still worth equipping for your classes. For example, Stompies for Hunter, excellent for Scorched. Really good, gives you a whole bunch of movement speed, very handy. Transversus Steps for Warlocks, gives you increased buffs for sprint speed, really cool. Titans, Lion Rampants, as well as Dune Marchers, they do increase your mobility. So any sort of exotic piece that increases your movement, that's going to be the best option for you. I've used Hunter a lot, and Stompies definitely help out. Even Frosties can help out because it increases your buff speed as well. So make sure you have those exotics equipped so you can have the best movement possible. And then lastly, what I recommend is if you're on console or really just, any like type of, way of playing the game, you want to make sure you have the highest sensitivity possible. Simply because you want to make sure you can move your camera from one place to another as quickly as possible, because we do have a really cool mechanic that's available. Now, before we get into the mechanic, we need to see how a Scorch Cannon works. Really, there's 3 ways of using them. One is just going to be called a fast fire. Okay, you just tap the button, boom, it launches, and then it will explode as soon as it hits something. It could be a guardian, it could be a wall, it could be a floor. It'll just explode automatically. 2, hold fire. Now, much like how a grenade launcher would work, let's say you were to shoot your Scorch Cannon, and then you shoot it, and you hold the firing button. And then, let's say in midair, in the middle of its flight, you release the firing button. The Scorch projectile will explode in midair. This is very useful for guardians who are in the air, and if you miss them, you still have the opportunity to damage them and potentially kill them. It makes it so that you are much more consistent with your Scorch Cannon, and most importantly, you are much more consistent with your damage. And having as much damage as possible for Scorch Cannons is important. Basically, the more damage you do, the more you perform. So make sure you do as much damage. It doesn't matter if you actually kill the Guardian. As long as you do a lot of damage, then you will kill Guardians eventually. And then, of course, there is Charge Fire. What you could do is that with the Scorch Cannon, you could hold the firing button and have it land on a wall or on the floor. And then it could charge up, and you could hold it for a certain amount of time until it gets to a large area effect, and once you release it, it will explode and do more damage. Now, this is good for surprise attacks. If somebody decides to walk to a corner, and then the Scorch projectile is active, you can simply release and kill the Guardian. However, if you're smart, you're not going to fall for this that much because you have these things called ears. And when you have ears, you could listen to your projectile charging up and making it so that it's not going to be that effective, at least for your opponents. But this is still going to be a very important mechanic simply because there's a little trick that you can do. And that is rocket jumping. Now, rocket jump is very simple to do with Scorch. All you need to do is once you're charging with a Scorch Cannon, you can go ahead and hold it, get to the projectile, release it, and then you fly to the air. Depending on how close you can get to the projectile, you could change your angle and your trajectory. And then, once you're in the air, you can even jump as well to switch certain directions and go ahead and switch to other directions. What also is useful for rocket jumping is it's not only available for while you're on the floor, it's also available if you're on next to a wall. So, if you're in a tough situation and you're about to be blown up, go ahead and shoot a Scorch Cannon right in front of you next to a wall. Instead of going and continuing at your position, you can just simply switch directions and then you're much harder to kill. So very, very handy. What's also going to be useful is that you want to go ahead and know the area of the map so you could stay alive longer and keep using rocket jump in order to keep yourself alive. Now, there's going to be some interesting things with rocket jump here. Rocket jump actually makes it so that you have a much better chance to Titan skate. And if you time it properly, you can actually run really fast with Titans. Map geography knowledge helps. You can not only rocket jump on the floor, you could rocket jump on walls and ceilings as well, making it so that if someone tries to shoot you, you're much harder to kill by using rocket jump. Now, there's going to be very important ways of killing Guardians. The best ways that I feel is knowing what kind of range that you're trying to kill them. Far range, you're not going to have as much success unless they are absolutely standing still and they're not doing anything to avoid the projectile. Really, the only way to be successful with far range attacks is if your timing is really good and if you're successful on predicting your opponent's movements. So let's say, for example, your opponent's trying to flank you and you know that they're going to come in at the door at a certain point. What you do is you look at your radar and they're going to be to the right of you. Just go ahead and shoot the projectile until to the point where you think they're going to come out. That's basically going to be the only time where far range projectiles are going to be useful. Then there's another range, which I call mid-range. This is probably going to be the most chaotic part of Scorch. Mid-range is going to be very difficult simply because you have no idea what's going to happen. You can kill them, they can kill you. How it's going to work is that a whole bunch of people are going to be in mid-range at the same time. So make sure you go ahead and focus on the target right in front of you and go ahead and take them out as quickly as possible. And then here's my most comfortable position, close range. Close range can either be the most beneficial or the least beneficial. How it works is basically if you have to jump on an opponent and you are in close range of them, you have the opportunity to kill them as quickly as possible. Let's say I get behind my opponent and they don't know that I'm right next to them behind them. I have the first attack. If I'm successful in my attack, hitting down below them and killing them automatically, they're dead, which makes it so that I win the battle. However, if the opponent later on comes to me, not knowing that they are literally 3 feet away from me, and they have the first opportunity to attack me, guess what? I'm dead. So, in order to take advantage of close range, what you probably want to do is go ahead and give surprise attacks towards your opponents. The more surprise attacks you do with close range, the better it's going to be a guaranteed kill for your team. So always keep that in mind. Far range, you're not going to be that successful. Mid range, you're not going to have as much control because everything's going to be so chaotic. That's why having high resilience and recovery is going to help out a lot. And then, of course, close range if you have the opportunity to surprise your opponent. So make sure you flank, you maneuver, you go ahead and take advantage of your surroundings, and make sure you go ahead and you rocket jump to certain positions where you could take advantage of your movement and take advantage of your surprise attacks. So, here are the keys to win. Always stay moving. Make sure you jump. Make sure you run. Make sure you slide. Keep your opponents in front of you. I don't care what your movement's going to be. As long as you keep moving and have your opponents in front of you, it's going to be a lot harder for them to kill you. So as long as you're a moving target, it's going to be a lot harder for your opponent to take you out. Also, make sure that you flank your opponent. Very effective. It's probably the most effective way to kill your opponents, actually. So make sure you stay in an awkward position where they can't see you, but you can see them. Make sure that you shoot through a doorway or an angle where it's awkward for your opponents to see you. It makes it so that it's a lot more chaotic for them, but not for you. Make it so that your allies have potentials to flank them, so that once they get distracted, you can engage. Overwhelm your opponents to win the encounter. Make sure you're aggressive, especially if you're alone. If you're at an encounter with at least 2 or 3 other guys and you're being aggressive with them, if you kill one of them and they kill you, it's a tie. If you kill 2 guys and they beat you, guess what? You're all alone. So you technically win the fight. You respawn and live to fight another day. Just make sure that you keep being aggressive so that they can go back and you can move forward. Never be afraid to retreat. If you feel overwhelmed, just go ahead and get out of there as quickly as possible. Go ahead and re-establish yourself, move to a different position, and go into a room where the enemy at least expects it. Make sure that you know your tools. Make sure that you understand how to fast fire, how to hold fire, especially if your opponent is up in the air and you're shooting a projectile towards them. Make sure you release at the proper time once the projectile gets to your opponent. Make sure that once the wall gets hit, that you can hold your shot and wait for your opponent to strike back. And with your timing, make sure you use it to not only get out of trouble, but also to take out your opponents. So anyway, guys, thank you guys for watching. Scorch is one of my most favorite activities to do with PvP. It not only just shows a much simpler time of Crucible back then, it also just helps you relax. Sometimes it's good to do Scorch every once in a while. Just go ahead and not focus on the meta, not focus on really just any skill. Don't focus on any sorts of competitive activity. Just focus on having fun. And sometimes it's good to have that every once in a while. And I personally think Scorch is one of the best ways to experience Crucible or PvP the best way possible. That's just my opinion, but you're free to debate that in the comment section below. But thank you guys for watching. Make sure you go ahead to like, comment, subscribe, and share this video. And comment below if you like Scorch. And if you don't, I challenge you. Have you played Scorch much at all? That's my challenge to you. If you haven't played Scorch much, play a few games, come back to me, and I want to hear your opinions. Thank you guys. God bless. See you next time. Goodbye.